Good afternoon and welcome to Eat at Home event organized by Paulig. My name is Kaisa Lipponen and I'm responsible for communications and sustainability at Paulig. And I'm one of the organizers of this event. And we are very excited to have you all here with us today to discuss how can we make it easier for consumers and people to make more sustainable choices. And we at Paulig are on a journey to create more sustainable food culture. And for those of you who don't know Paulig yet, we are an international family-owned food and beverage company. And we provide all things tasty, coffee and beverages, Tex-Mex and spices, snacks, and plant-based choices. And what comes to more sustainable choices, our thinking follows very much the concept of planetary health diet by Eat Lancet. So we believe that what is good for people is also good for the planet. But we think that there is also a third element which is very important, and that's taste. Because if it doesn't taste good, we think that people will always choose something else. And we also believe in collaboration, and that's why we have invited some of our key stakeholders to discuss with us today and share their views on this important topic. So I once again warmly welcome you all, and I hope that you enjoyed the event. And next, I will give the floor to my colleague Niels, who will walk us through with some of the practicalities. Please, Niels.
Hi, of course. We're going to go through our housekeeping rules. So, first of all, this session is being recorded. Second, the recording link will be shared via email afterwards. Third, questions are answered in the end of this session. And fourth, use the Q&A box to ask questions. Now, moderator of this event is Karin Jonsson, also Sustainability Program Manager at Paulig on Nutrition and Health. Karin, I hand over to you.
Thank you, Niels, and also Kaisa for this introduction. Sustainability is more current than ever and a hot topic on most companies' agendas, not least within the food sector. That is a substantial driver of several aspects of sustainability, such as climate and environment and health and well-being. That sustainability matter is no question. Questions are instead, what shall we focus on and how shall we do it? And here many companies have come far with ambitious agendas for sustainable products. But sustainable products are not impactful unless they are chosen over less sustainable products. Products with more beneficial environmental footprint must be chosen over the less beneficial ones. And it doesn't matter how healthy a product is unless it is eaten, unless it is chosen by the consumer again and again. We need to move towards a sustainable food culture, and we must have the consumers on board by their choices that can be conscious or unconscious. And what is the importance of conscious and unconscious choices? And what does it require to achieve that choice over again? Is taste the key? Is flavor the essence of change? Now, this is the heading of this panel discussion that will be framed within the scope of the importance of conscious and unconscious choices. And I am excited to moderate this discussion and delighted to present our selected panelists. Karin Vendin, Professor in Food and Meal Science at Kristianstad University. Stellan Höinelämä, Content Lead for the Eat for Change initiative at WWF Finland. Martin Kahn, Creative Director at the Bacon Hospital. Charlotta Szczepanowski, Sustainability and Quality Manager at Coop Sweden. And Lea Rankinen, Director of Sustainability and Public Affairs at Paulig. And I will give you panelists a minute to introduce yourself a bit more. So Karin, please tell us about yourself.
Yes, first of all, thank you for the invitation and for being here. I'm a professor in food and meal science, and I work at Kristianstad University, and I also have a position at the University of Copenhagen. My background is in chemistry and also in flavorings. I have worked a lot with perception and preferences. That is a science called sensory science. And I've been most of all focusing on food, but I've also been working with other type of products. Thank you.
Thank you, Karin. Stella, please will you give an introduction of yourself?
Sure. I giggle every time someone introduces me because I have an impossible last name, but you did well. So thank you for the invitation as well. It's really exciting to be here to have this discussion. My name is Stella Hönalamma. I work at WWF Finland. I've been at WWF roughly since 2012. I've worked on a variety of different sustainability issues at WWF Finland, obviously, but also Turkey and Sweden. For about the last 5 years, a little bit more, I've been focusing on food, the environmental impacts of food, and more specifically, the environmental impacts of our diets and what we can do and what we should do and need to do to shift our diets towards more sustainable choices. In my previous role before my current work, I coordinated the WWF global work on sustainable diets. And now, as mentioned, I'm the content lead for Eat for Change, which is a really exciting new project, EU funded, where we're working with 12 different partners in Latin America and in Europe to support a shift towards a sustainable food system.
Thank you, Stella. And next, Martin.
Hello, my name is Martin Kahn. I'm very happy to be invited to this event here. Really exciting. I'm a Swedish creative director with a background in the Swedish, Danish, and Canadian advertising and design industry. This has meant that I have been working with a lot of different lines of businesses, including work for a lot of food-related clients, both in retail and food service through the years. 2014, my focus shifted from traditional advertising and design to exclusively work on assignments that can help us achieve a livable planet in the future. So, and since the food industry is such a huge part of the transition that we need so badly, I have been involved in a couple of brands related to the protein shift. Lately, a product called Sprout, which is a pea milk that is now being introduced in Scandinavia and the UK and in North America. I'm also co-founder of the Bacon Hospital. It's an alternative ad and design agency that opened this year. It's a great year to start a new business, by the way. With the sole purpose to work towards and beyond the global goals. And basically, we make ad and design concepts for clients that believe in the same things we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. And Charlotta.
Hello, my name is Charlotta Szczepanowski, and I work as a director of sustainability and quality within the Swedish Coop. Previously, I've been working with sustainability issues in different sectors, such as the building sector, and I've been in the logistic, and I've also been in the Electrolux group. My learnings from my years within the sustainability area is in the importance of seeing sustainability as a system rather than seeing it as individual aspects. So that's something that I will discuss further on today.
Thank you, Charlotta. And Leah, please.
Thank you very much, Karin, for your introduction. Hopefully this you can hear me at least. My video is stopped here somehow, but hopefully here. So yes, I would describe myself as a passionate sustainability professional, food lover, in the area, because I have been working nearly 20 years with the sustainability areas, and it's been always related somehow to the food, and also from my childhood. I'm the country girl in that sense, and love to grow my own food, and so that's really about the passion and huge respect about the agricultural phase and with the food production. I have worked as a director of sustainability and public affairs at Paulig since March this year, but 19 years experience from the retail and service sector in this area. And yeah, I'm environmental engineer, but I always describe that with the human heart, and what I like to describe that into the sustainability, we need to keep our heart warm and keep the logic and execute persistently the impact. And that's what I'm always looking at, that how can we make the systemic change, and what are really the front running actions, and combine the aspects of the health and human rights and environmental issues.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for a nice presentation round. And let's dive into our first section, the importance of consciousness in making sustainable choices. In other words, making conscious choices. And there is a growing awareness and demand from consumers that the food we eat shall be healthy and sustainable, sourced and produced. But for the conscious consumer to be able to make this choice, there must be choices available and with relevant information. And many climate labels are starting to appear on products, but we know that it is just not that simple. At Coop, they have taken action in an attempt to paint a fuller picture of sustainability. And I would like to direct the first words to Charlotta, Sustainability and Quality Manager at Coop. Please tell us about the Sustainability Declaration and your view on the importance of making conscious choices. Maybe you're unmuted, no? Charlotta, you unmute yourself. Charlotta. Oh. So, okay, maybe we will wait for Charlotta and she can jump in later. I will then move the question to Leah. What is your thoughts when it comes to sustainability and making these conscious choices, and the need of transparency and information and data collection? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Thank you very much, Karin. I think this is very interesting topic and question, and somehow if I'm using also my background experience and looking at the consumers and making conscious choices, I think that is always the kind of a group who are the front runners in the areas, and how can we learn from there and they deliver. It's that what kind of new steps to take and develop actually the products. I think that's how I frame and look at that group actually, that this is always minor. But then the transparency and the areas to look at this, I think it's a 3 different divisions we can have, that kind of for example, labeling, or the Coop model, for example, that what is the content on cover? It's always what we talk about with the under umbrella of sustainability. That are we talking about the climate? I would like to see into the future that we more combine the nutrition and climate angles together there. And make that, because sometimes if people do the conscious choices, that we have a different touch point for them too, because some of them looking more about the healthy for themselves than the climate, and that we can make them very easy for them. And then also that if developing the tools for consumers, are we giving that in the general level, or are we really going to the product level information? Because sometimes the general level is the answer for consumers to make the changes into the dietary level, but the product information is that what encourages the manufacturers and players to really develop ongoingly their products more sustainable. So I think we need the both levels in that sense. And then the third touching part is the data. If we label or we use the more broader digital tools from the manufacturer side, the data comes from here actually. So it is important that we have a long-term joint visions also for the level of transparency and what is the accuracy of data we will need that to also develop the IT systems and actually use this information to make the longer term systemic change. So these are quite summary of my first reflections on this topic.
Thank you so much, Lea. And it seems like we have lost Charlotta for a while. And I will just give a brief description about the sustainability declaration that Coop has made. And as I said in the beginning, there has been many climate declarations that has emerged. And now Coop has tried to inform the consumers that it's not only about climate. They have combined 10 different aspects of sustainability into one labeling. It looks like a spider diagram that will give the possibility here, because they will give the possibility for the consumer to make an informed choice when it comes to sustainability aspects of here, biodiversity loss, climate change, soil degradation, water consumption, pesticides and chemicals, animal welfare, working conditions, local population, compliance and traceability. And here we can see two different spider diagrams, one on the protein, vegan protein, and one on beef. And as Lea also said, we also have the sustainability part of nutrition. That is another aspect that also comes into sustainability. And I would like to direct now some questions to Martin, creative director, and Karin, professor in food and meal science. When it comes to conscious, sustainable choices, what do you think the consumers are receptive to? To what extent? There's so much information to take in and to inform about. And how do you think information affects the consumers' decisions? So Martin, please, what is your view there?
Yes, I just want to start with saying that just a little reflection on the Coop spider chart there, which is, I think, is a great example of, instead of adding labels, which is a problem today, just actually adding an infographic for me, which is really helps to understand and get a really clear insight of what kind of footprint I'm making when I'm buying this product. But I think in general, what consumers are receptive to is, I think we're receptive to everything that hits us emotionally. Anything that actually breaks through and reaches us emotionally, we are receptive to. But we are receptive to one message at a time, unfortunately. That's how we're kind of programmed. That means that more than one message at a time creates a dissonance, and we tend to zone out. So the climate labeling, as it is today, that we're used to seeing, it's an interesting example that has both up and down sides. I mean, being exposed to a clutter of labels, I think many people group them into one positive message, which is like, and that positive message creates a positive emotion, and then it triggers a reaction. So it's like, okay, this product does something good. I have no idea what, but I don't think I'm destroying the planet, which is great, so I buy it. So I think that's how a lot of people perceive the labeling as it is today. So the more we can simplify it the way that Coop is doing there is a great example, or even just kind of narrow it down into one message at a time, that really would help.
Thank you, Martin. And Karin, professor in food and meal science, do you have any reflection about how much information in these conscious choices and how much information are we receptive to, and and how does this affect the consumer's choices?
Yeah, and I agree fully with Martin that the emotions, our emotions, are really important to us. And we are not so good at perceiving too many messages at one time. So that could be hard for us, but there are many levels into this. And I think we should also be very aware that we are so impacted by different trends in our society, and trends that are coming and going. So for example, looking at this organic trend that has been for quite a while, but is now fading out and being replaced more by locally produced food, because the consumer think that, oh, well, I couldn't talk for everybody, but many consumer, they can take one message and before it was the organic, and we could see from studies that we made that, oh, it's organic, then it's healthy and it's good for everything. And it's tasty, and it's, it was very good. And then this trend was fading out, and people are getting more into these locally produced, and suddenly these products, they are healthy and good and everything, because you connect these positive feelings for what you think it is before, instead of being more informed about what is what. But you put everything sort of into one package and say that this is good for me. And then if you're very conscious and very sort of interested, then you could go into and look at packages and look at different concepts and say, oh, it's good for this and that and that. But that is not so many consumers who are doing that. They are going more on the emotions.
Thank you, Karin. Thank you so much. And I see that Charlotta is back in. Charlotta, since you were out here, I've given a brief description about the Sustainability Declaration, and we actually need to move on soon. But before I have a question, the last question to Stella. But before that, Charlotta, would you like just to say a few words, some short words regarding the Sustainability Declaration and your work there?
Yes, we've done the sustainability declarations, and the reason for doing these declarations is that we want to steer our assortment. So it's more of an internal tool to start off with. But then when we launched it internally, we saw that a lot of understanding regarding sustainability was really gained by showing the declarations. And as you can see in this picture, in the left-hand side, you have a vegan protein with low climate change impact. However, on the left-hand side, you see the beef with a higher climate change impact. And this is a very good beef, of course, and a bad vegan protein. But I think it's very important that when we work internally, that we really steer on everything and really make sure that our assortment is good in every aspect. And also we will communicate that to the customers.
Thank you so much, Charlotta. Maybe we will get some questions in the end. You can describe it more. And before going as a transition, going to the next block, Stella, you were working with transforming the population's food habits. Do you think that knowledge and having the ambition is this enough to make sustainable choices to the extent that is needed? Do you have a thought on that? A short answer.
Short answer. That's a really good question. First, I don't want to take for granted that all of our listeners, my guess is that we have a very educated audience here, but to not take for granted that everybody knows really the urgency of the situation. Global food production and consumption are the single biggest human pressure on nature. To give one number, 70% of biodiversity loss on land is driven by agriculture. So really, to have any chance of reaching the global goals, the Sustainable Development Goals that Martin referred to earlier, we really have to address this food system. And 10 years might sound like a long way away, but it really isn't. It's a very short time. So I'm not really going to sugarcoat it. We're going to need all the tools that are available to us. And that means, I mean, here we're talking about consumer choices, which are definitely really, really important. That's something that we work with and that we work to change. But of course, that in itself is not enough. When we're talking about labels and consumer information in general, part of the assumption is that consumers, A, are interested, and B, have the time and the capacity to actually look at that information, which not everybody does. So I think it's very important that we provide consumers, those that are interested, with the right kind of information. And here, I mean the right kind, really, not too much, not too little. Also, maybe not focusing too much on one product over the other, but rather what is important is the impact of your whole diet, what you eat every single day, and what you eat most of, rather than the thing that you choose once a month, for example. But then obviously we also need to influence those who don't have the time and who are maybe not interested, and nudge them to make better choices as well. Because, you know, as was mentioned, I think by Lea in the beginning, obviously what is better for the planet is also better for people. So we want to make sure that we're eating more sustainable and also healthier.
Thank you, Stella. And I would like to use that as a transition, because of course, I think we can all agree on that transparency, information, and educating the consumers are important, but also that merely relying on the consumer to make the right choices, it might not take us all the way. Of course, we need to look at the food system, but also the consumers that actually don't do these conscious choices. We need to influence them in other ways. And this leads us then to our next session, the importance of making sustainable choices the natural subconscious choice. And Martin, you are creative director at the Bacon Hospital, and you have worked in the advertising arena basically your whole career, and you have been involved in a big Swedish success such as Oomph. And I remember some years ago at one of the largest Swedish food industry events, Livsmedelsdagarna, when I think Oomph was receiving an award, and a cool crew walking up the stage in torn jeans, black t-shirts, caps and tattoos, to the sound of some deep bass music pumping in the background. The approach and feeling, mirroring the approach and feeling of the Oomph product and pack and the marketing. So Martin, I would like to hear your thoughts regarding the importance of getting to the consumer through other means than having them make a conscious, sustainable choice. How important is it, and how do we do it?
Yes, it's, well, we need to use all the tools we can, of course, as we said before, to drive change. So yes, it is important that we trigger subconscious choices. I mean, but the problem is that today there's a lot of sustainability proposals out there, which makes the consumer numb. So we need to find alternative ways to kind of hotwire the change. And yes, how it's done, it's first, it's crucial that the sustainable choice appears more desirable than the alternative, of course. And that's through both the product in itself and how it's being marketed. And I would say that that is actually basic communication, like find a unique message that is clear and relevant and fresh and true and transparent, and make it sure that it hits the consumer at eye level, and that will eventually turn into a natural choice. So I mean, the line here between conscious and subconscious is, I mean, I'm in the manipulating industry here, so I'm trying to do these things all the time in a way, but I mean, there are also some classic ways to deal with this. It's like to use some kind of a nudging tricks here, that which is like, nudging is that then that's when you propose a positive reinforcement indirectly to influence the consumer. And I mean, a good example of that is how the fact that we have the standard is at restaurants, for instance, that plant-based is an option to meat at restaurants. Like the plant-based option is an alternative. But for example, doing the opposite is an interesting nudge. Of offering plant-based as a standard and meat as an option is actually something we see more and more, which is great. And that's an interesting way of, without, I mean, the options are there, but we just by turning the priorities to the consumer, we are actually forcing them to make some kind of maybe an unconscious decision there.
Thank you, Martin. And I would like to go back a bit to Stella, because you've been working with these large initiatives and on population levels, and you will work as a content lead for Eat for Change at WWF. And what are your thoughts and maybe plans already around helping the consumers to choose sustainable, and your reflections around the importance of making sustainable choices the natural subconscious choice?
Sure. Actually, I'd love to have this conversation in a couple of months, and maybe we will, because we're thinking about a similar event. But what we're doing at the moment is actually gathering research into what are the best strategies to shift behavior, particularly in this area, and focusing on the interventions that we have planned within the project and looking at how we can tweak them and how we can make them more impactful. So in a couple of months, I will have much better answer to this question. But really what we're planning on doing is, obviously we ground everything we do in conservation science, but we also want to ground it in behavioral science and get really input from there. But I think what we're looking at here is also norms. I mean, that picture you showed from Ulf is challenging the really absurd norm that there is something inherently masculine about eating meat, and not eating meat is not masculine. I mean, that is something that is accepted by a staggering amount of people without questioning it, because obviously that's just something created by advertising originally. And now advertising is helping to shift that norm, which is good, of course. And likewise, what Martin referred to, as in a lot of countries and in most of Europe, we have shifted to a norm where we assume that a meal has meat and large amounts of meat, which obviously is really harmful, because the amounts of animal-based products we are eating currently is not sustainable at all on an environmental level or a health level. So we really need to shift that norm to a kind of thinking where, yes, meat can be obviously a part of your diet, but it's not the number one thing, and it's not in every single meal. So what we are going to be doing is working with conscious choices, definitely. And we're going to be focusing on working with youth, which is really exciting, I think, personally, and really working together with them to engage their peers as well, to raise awareness as well, because that's needed, but also engage people in the shift towards better diets. But then we're also going to be working with those young people, active citizens, and helping them influence systems. So working with them to influence what corporations are doing, and also policy, to make sure that it's easy to make sustainable choices, and those who want to can do it, but also make it harder to make bad choices for the planet and for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I see that Charlotta, you would like to add something, please.
Yes, I think I'm a bit worried about the confusion that is out there, because many consumers want to do the right choice, but it's a confusion. They don't know if they should choose ecologic, or if they should choose something that's good for the climate, or if they should choose something with less palm oil, for example. So there is, I think that we need to clarify more what is all about, because it's a bit too much confusion, and I'm afraid that they will not trust the communication in the future if we're not more clarifying on the topic.
Thank you, Stella. And you are bringing back again the importance of maybe the conscious choices here and the importance of being clear in those conscious choices. And I agree, it's really important. And I see that Leah, you have raised your hand, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Maybe building on also what Charlotte was saying, that I think it's really important also that we should make this also easy for consumers and keep the simplicity in mind. And sometimes I would like to see that there are different layers, that some of them are that we need to make more desirable for people to make the bigger changes. For example, with the climate, that you do the dietary level changes that need the different kind of actions, how you inspire consumers, what kind of concepts to create there. But then there will be the other area always that we can definitely, like under the iceberg, we can develop always the products to be more sustainable, that consumers doesn't even notice it, for example, and that those can have a very big impact on a societal level. And one example is that in a nutrition point of view, there are some of the areas where you can always do the change, kind of making for yourself the model to make the changes, and that you can leverage and have a big impact to the bigger audience.
Thank you so much. We have Karin and then Stella. So Karin, please.
Yes, I would like to add to what Leah just said, that we should maybe not force the consumer to make the big choices or the big differences directly, but go for the small things. Make it easy. The nudging thing is really, really important. It could be, for example, serving more salads at restaurants, serving more type of vegetables, and maybe diminish the portion of meat in different types of lunch restaurants. So it could be very easy, and in stores front the more sustainable alternatives, so to make it easy to make the more sustainable choice.
Thank you, Karin. And Stella, you will be the last person in this section now to reflect on this. If you still have a thought, I saw your hand.
Yeah, no, I just put it down so I remember. Just something for Carlotta on that comment on information to consumers. I fully agree. I think there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of confusion, and that's completely understandable because there's also a lot of competing information. And I think a part of the solution there is also the national nutritional guidelines in a lot of countries. So the information that comes from government that also then guides public food procurement. There, I mean, we published a report recently on planet-based diets that looked at national nutritional guidelines, and we noticed that even if we ate according to them, which we don't, but even if we did, they are not within planetary boundaries at the moment. So we really actually need to look at the national nutritional guidelines and make sure that planetary boundaries are also included in them.
Thank you, Stella. And thank you so much all for your interesting and important thoughts. And these unconscious natural choices are indeed important. And from what we heard earlier, and also in this block, so are the informed conscious ones. But to create the impact needed by these choices and transform a whole food culture, we need to continuously make those choices again and again and again. And how do we make this happen? And in this session, we have pinpointed one factor that we see as crucial for these repeated choices, and that is taste and flavor. So the importance of taste to make sustainable choices is what our next block is all about. And Karin, you are professor in food and meal science from Kristianstad University with a mission of sustainable, healthy society. And you have deep expertise and long experience from sensory science and innovation. Please tell us a bit about what is taste and what affects the taste experience. How does taste relate to the food and meal experience? And how important is taste in choosing sustainable foods? Please.
Many questions in one, and I should try to not be too long because I can talk about this for hours. But to start, we are all we all have an innate preference for sweet taste. Independently from where we come from or who we are, we have this preference. And we also have an innate aversion towards bitter taste. And that, we think, depends on the preference for sweet taste. We think that has to do with survival. A long time ago, we needed energy to survive. And the aversion to bitterness, that is probably because there are many bioactive compounds that have a bitter taste, and many of them were harmful to us and still are, of course. And that is why we think these innate preferences and aversions are still there. And you can start to form your preferences already before you're born. It's not you who form them, it's your mother then, because you can have an impact of what the mother eats and what she smells and what which odors, which perfumes, and of course, which type of food she is eating. That has an impact of what the baby then will recognize when he or she is born. So it's also very important that we keep this in mind. But then there are also different type of genetics, and we are sensitive to different things. Some of us have a bitter sensitivity to bitter taste, some for the other type of flavors and so on. So that has also an impact, of course. But then we form our eating habits and preferences very much due to our families, the social context that we live in, and so on. So our parents and our society, they have a great impact of what we are doing and what we are eating. So when we are getting older, we can form our preference ourselves. We think we do, but we are not, because we are being impacted of so many things, first from our parents and the families and societies, and then from our friends. But what you have what you form when you are very young, that will remain throughout life, and it will get stronger when you get old again. So old people normally have a preference from what they eat and what they had, to say they had some kind of favorite food when they were kids, that will still be their favorite food when they are old. But in between, we are being impacted of different trends, and we would like to do right and so on. But to keep these or get these into sustainable food choices, it has to be tasty for us. And another thing is that it's not only the taste and flavor, it is also the texture of different types of food. So getting all these together, texture, flavor, and taste, that will give us the preferences of what we like and do not like.
Thank you, Karin, for this very interesting miniature lecture in taste and flavor. And I would like to open the question for the rest of the panelists. How important is taste in choosing sustainable foods? And is it different maybe depending on if we make conscious or unconscious sustainable food choices? Should it be different? Does it have to be different? And are there areas that are more important than others when it comes to taste and sustainable choices? I see Martin, please.
Yes, this is definitely not my field of expertise, but I find it very interesting what Karin said about there's some of the subjectiveness of taste, and I think that is like a little sub thing to that might be that, and this is more of a personal reflection, that we expect a certain flavor from a certain product. That's how we're brought up. but it's, I mean, especially a problem that I find when new products come to the market is like, especially plant-based milk and plant-based cheese, for instance, that is tricky in my experience, because if you expect, for instance, an oat milk to taste like real milk, you will definitely be disappointed. It will taste like liquid cardboard or something like that. But if you overturn your expectations and approach it in a different, as a different standalone product, you're more likely to accept the taste, I think. I'm just speculating here, but from, yeah, just finding with myself that I've learned to really enjoy new products that had flavors that I would haven't been used to before, and now I can actually start craving them, which is kind of weird. But so I find it kind of provoking when people say that they can never give up the taste of this or that in favor of a more sustainable choice. I think we can learn to appreciate more new flavors if we are motivated enough. And yeah, but still, personally, I'm struggling with a plant-based cheese, though.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And time is actually running, and we have 4 panelists that want to say something, or 3. So to give a short reflection on this, Stella, then Charlotta and Lea, some short words before we wrap this up. So Stella?
Sure. Definitely not my field of expertise either, so I will be short, but I'm definitely a foodie out in my personal life, and lucky enough to be married to a chef, which, yeah, means that I have a lot of opinions. I think one thing is, when we're talking about product level, then what Martin said is definitely really true and really important. That's where we're looking at kind of the expectations of, does this taste like I think it's going to change? Does it taste like milk or cheese or whatever? But then when we're talking about dietary level, again, there's kind of a notion or a weird norm that does sustainable food taste worse, which is completely absurd, because of course there's no correlation between taste and sustainability, because there's such a huge variety of things you can eat and put on your plate. And I mean, Karin was talking about things like sweetness and bitterness, and those are flavors, and they're not tied to meat-based or plant-based. They depend on seasoning and also obviously the product itself. But maybe just important to keep in mind that there's definitely no correlation between sustainability and flavor. You can absolutely have delicious sustainable and delicious unsustainable food.
Thank you, Stella. Charlotta, some few short words and thoughts around this.
I actually wanted to say the same thing as Stella, because we have a lot of sensory testing in our department within Coop, and we don't see that contradiction between flavors and sustainability. However, what I also want to say is that if we, for example, wants to lower the sugar content, that is very difficult if to do it only one company. We need to do this on a society level. We can see that in, for example, lowering the salt, how much salt you have in food. It's not possible for one company to do that, because then, so we need to do it on a society level. So that's something to think of as well.
Thank you. That is very true. And to wrap up the panelists' thoughts here before we go into the public, the audience questions, Lea, do you want to say some final words around this? And don't forget to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. So I think, yeah, thank you. The question is that how we can use the taste and flavor as an enabler also to help us consumers to make shifts to, for example, to eating more healthier, that using spices to inspire eating more veggies. That is the one thing. And then the final other word is that when we are talking about food, I think one good issue is to remember that we get what the soil gives us. And that is closing the loop, that if we take care of the kind of the biodiversity and climate into the agricultural phase, we get more nutritional and more tasty raw materials from there.
Thank you, Leah. And I think we've got some questions, and I will let Nils in to read our first question.
Yes, the first question goes to Karin. Karin, do you think that plant-based foods is a social trend that will pass, like organic or locally produced?
That was a hard question, I must say. I hope it will stay, and I don't see the contradiction that we shouldn't. I think we can see these type of food in different types of forms, and to make them trendy in different ways. At least that is what I hope for.
Thank you. We also have a second question, and this one is for Charlotte. And it goes like this. You said the sustainable declarations were mainly for internal use, but are they also used towards the consumers? And if so, how important do you think that type of labeling is compared to product placement, range of products, pricing and marketing, which are all factors that influence the consumer's choice?
The sustainability declarations will be launched in March for all our consumers for 16,000 products. We think that some customers will look at these declarations. Some might not do that, but what I'm hoping for is to raise the awareness of that it's more than only one issue we need to look at the system. I think that all the other aspects that you were lifting in your questions are equally important. We need to work in all different areas in order to make this happen. So we're looking into many different areas, but this is one approach with the sustainability declaration, both to communicate to our customers and to steer our own assortment.
Thank you. A third question on this one is to Stella. Do you think that changing the default of meals design from meat-centered to plant-centered would be a positive step towards the change?
Yes. I think I may have addressed that a little bit earlier on, but I think that's definitely a shift that needs to happen to move away from the kind of norm of always eating meat and always having meat at the center of the table and the center of the diet to a much more a bigger variety of foods, basically.
Thank you so much. I think, do we have time for one more question? So the last question before we round off, Nils.
Yes, it goes like this. And this is to everyone. Do you think that negotiationist positions like denying the environmental impact of animal source products is an issue, and how should it be treated?
Did you understand the question?
Can I hear that again, please?
Yes, it goes like this. Let's see. Do you think that negotiationist positions denying the environmental impact of animal source products is an issue, and how should it be treated?
Stella and Charlotta, I see you have raised your hands. Charlotta, you want to answer it short?
Yes, I understand the question as if you ask if there is a problem that we don't acknowledge the problems with meat, and I actually think it is a problem that we need to make everybody aware of, that it's not possible to eat as much meat as we do today, even though we should eat a bit of meat, or we can eat a bit of meat. But we need to make sure that the politician and everybody is really aware of this, and that we understand it and see the same future with less meat. And I think that we're not there yet.
Thank you. Stella, do you have a very few or short comments on this?
Yes, I think denying environmental impacts of animal-based products is definitely a problem that exists, but I think part of that at least comes from misunderstandings as well, because it's not only, we talk about less meat, but it's also about better meat. There are really, really good ways of producing animal products as well, and we should be shifting towards those and reducing meat. So it's about less and about better. And I think when we talk about some of these better production systems, which we should talk about, it sometimes creates confusion as well. It's not as simple as you might think. I think that may be part of the issue.
Thank you, Stella. And we must end the session of question round of this panel, the panel discussion. Thank you so much for your questions and for your answers. And I think we all can agree on that change is needed for a sustainable future, and that the food we eat play an important part, and that the consumer choices are key, where taste plays an important role for choices of any product, sustainable products making no exception. But unless we take strong enough action as producers to make sustainable products attractive, and as consumers to actually choose them, we might end up not having the luxury of choices we have today. Climate changes may change prerequisites for what we can actually grow, and we may not be able to fit an optimally healthy diet within the planetary boundaries, as the Eat Lancet Commission has shown that today we still can. Stella has already been touching on this, depending on how we look at on a healthy diet. So let's cherish our sustainable choices, keep working for making them accessible, attractive, and tasty, pushing the consumers towards the sustainable food culture, and letting the consumers push the industry towards sustainability and transparency, information, and comparability. We're all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Niels, I think you will have some concluding remarks here.
Thank you, Karin. And thank you all the panelists for your time and expertise. And of course, thank you all that have listened to this session. We just want to let you know that, as I said in the beginning, this session has been recorded, and we will publish this recording link on our website afterwards. And we will also send it out via the email that you have registered to this event too, alongside with the questions that we weren't able to answer today. So thank you, everyone, and have a nice evening.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.